I tend to cover cases of family-side, in particular historical ones. This case is particularly sad, as all of them are, mainly because this one took place on Christmas Day back in 1929. Hi folks, I'm Johnny and welcome to The Oddest. If you already know me, then welcome back. If you're new here, then welcome. Leave me a wee comment to say hello, but also be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any of my upcoming videos. Right, let's get straight into this story. Charles Lawson was born on the 10th of May in 1886 in North Carolina. At the age of 25, he married a woman called Fanny Manring and would go on to have 8 children together. Remember, these were the days before Netflix and video games, so besides work, there was not much else to do, so families were huge. Wink. Like I said, the story takes place in 1929. By the time December rolled around, his oldest daughter, Marie, was 17 years old. The rest of the family consisted of Arthur, age 16, Carrie, she was 12, Mabel, age 7, James, who was 4, Raymond was 2, and lastly was baby Lou, who was only 4 months old. That makes 7. That's because their third born son, William, sadly passed away due to illness at the age of 6 back in 1920. Charlie Lawson had 2 younger brothers called Marion and Elijah. When he discovered that they both had moved to the Germantown area of North Carolina, Lawson saw this as a good opportunity to have a fresh start with his family and be closer to his siblings. So the entire Lawson tribe uprooted and moved. The Lawsons set up as tenant tobacco farmers. This just meant that the land in which they grew their tobacco was not theirs. They essentially rented the farmland. This was an affordable way to get a wee head start, and before long the Lawsons would have saved enough money to buy their own farm in 1927. This farm was situated on Brook Cove Road. Charlie Lawson packed up the whole family to Winston-Salem just 2 weeks before Christmas to buy everyone new clothes and then pose for this photo. Back then, going on such a spending spree was fairly unheard of, especially by a family of tobacco farmers. Then add the fact that arranging and posing for a family portrait made these events even more strange. Charlie would also withdraw all cash from the bank account, a sum totaling $60, which by today's standards was around $1,000. However, all of this would make some sort of sense by late afternoon on Christmas Day. Over the years, various experts have speculated that the murders were premeditated due to the spending spree and family portrait. Little did they know that their portrait would be seen by millions and still discussed almost 100 years later. In a creepy twist of fate, the family also had no way of knowing that the lovely and expensive clothes that Charlie bought them all that day, the clothes they were wearing in this photo, would become their funeral clothes. The same clothes they were all buried in. So, Christmas Day arrived and was a fairly typical day, albeit a cold one with over 6 inches of snow on the ground. Charlie and his 16-year-old son Arthur went rabbit hunting in the morning. This was a fairly common tradition, especially during Thanksgiving and often at Christmas. This would mean that any of the surrounding neighbours hearing gunshots wouldn't have found it particularly strange or out of the ordinary. During their outing, Arthur had told his dad that he was running short on ammunition and asked if he could share some of his, to which Charlie had refused, saying that he needs his ammo, because, well, he just needed it. Instead, he gave Arthur some money and told him to go into town and buy more ammo. Arthur rousted up one of his cousins and headed for town. Meanwhile, back in the Lawson house, 7-year-old Mabel and her older sister, 12-year-old Carrie, were getting ready, as later that morning they would be going to visit their aunt and uncle that lived on a nearby farm. A short time later, both sisters excitedly left the house to make the short journey together. As they rounded the barn, they discovered Charlie standing with a loaded shotgun. Their father then raised his gun at the 2 young girls and fired, shooting both of them. He then bludgeoned the girls to death and dragged their lifeless bodies into the barn. Fanny was sitting on the porch at the time and ran into the house, screaming. Charlie entered the house after her, shooting and killing her also. The oldest daughter, Marie, along with her two younger brothers, 4-year-old James and 2-year-old Raymond, were screaming and crying hysterically as they had just witnessed their mother being killed in the kitchen at the hands of their father. Charlie then turned his attention to them, killing them where they cowered, helpless only feet away from their mother. It was widely speculated that Charles sent his eldest son on this errand for ammunition, as he believed that he may have been the only one capable enough to stop his gruesome plan. Later that afternoon, Arthur would return home and discover his mother and siblings dead. Charles had placed rocks under each of his victims' heads and folded their hands across their chests. Arthur soon contacted the police, and a crowd was gathering at Lawson Farm. The police spread out as they searched for Charles, who at the time was nowhere to be found. A short time later, a single gunshot could be heard not far away in a wooded area. Upon police arrival at this location, they would discover Charles. He was dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. It's also noted that there were numerous footprints in a circular pattern around the tree, which suggested that Charles was pacing back and forth prior to turning his gun on himself. They also found letters next to the tree, written by Charles to his parents. However, neither of the letters gave any motive or reason for him killing his entire family. This left police with the biggest question. Why? Why did he kill 7 members of his family, and on Christmas Day no less? So let's discuss some theories. Months prior to Christmas, Charles had sustained a head injury whilst he was digging on the farm. He was wielding a pickaxe, and at some point the head of the tool got caught on a section of wire fencing. After a sharp tug, the head of the pickaxe came loose, striking him directly on the forehead, causing blood to run down his face and left him with a bruised head and face for over a week. Family and friends would later say that his mental state had changed after this. He became more agitated and was quick to anger. At one point, Fanny had awoken in the middle of the night to find Charles out in the yard, kneeling and praying. When she asked him about this, he said that his headaches were so severe that it was just unbearable. However, Charlie's body was taken to Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore for an autopsy, which revealed no evidence of any brain trauma and certainly no significant injuries to the brain that would cause such behaviour. In 1990, writers M. Bruce Jones and Trudy Smith authored a book chronicling these events called White Christmas, Bloody Christmas. In that book, they suggested that Charles was having an incestuous relationship with his eldest daughter Marie, and prior to the murders had discovered that she was in fact pregnant with his child. The authors claim that this fact was known by a member of the extended family and was reported to them directly by a descendant of that family member. Experts have theorised that if we look again at the Lawson family portrait, you can make out what could be perceived as a slight baby bump on Marie. It's also been said that it's usually common practice for the parents of the family to be front and centre of such a portrait. However, we can see this is not the case. Not long after the murders, Charlie's brother Marion opened the Lawson house as a visitor attraction. They never even bothered to clean the home, leaving it in disarray with bullet holes and bloodstains still intact. This gruesome Christmas Day on the Lawson family farm would go down in history and has inspired various songs and even a movie. To this very day, no one really knows why Charles Lawson decided to kill his entire family. I mean, he could have just left them a wee note, wandered off into the woods alone and ate a bullet. Why kill everyone? Evidence would definitely suggest premeditation. More than 5,000 people attended the Lawson family funeral, in which the caskets were left open for family members to view the bodies. People formed 2 lines and shuffled by the coffins one by one, bowing their heads as they went. This ritual took over 3 hours. In 1945, Arthur Lawson was sadly killed in a car accident at the age of 42. He left behind a wife and 4 children. The headstone inscription reads, "Not now, but in the coming years, it will be a better land. We'll read the meaning of our tears, and then sometime we'll understand. That's it for this one, folks. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I can't wait to see you all in the next one. Why not have a wee click of the like button? And you know what? Leave me a wee comment to say hello. I would love to hear from you. Stay safe out there, please, and as always, keep smiling.